How's it going, everybody? And welcome to another episode of the Barely There podcast. Be sure to follow us on Twitter at Barely There Pod. Be sure to subscribe over on Spotify, Apple. Be sure to sub on YouTube. Like and subscribe if you like what you're hearing. I'm Duke Coughlin. You can follow me on Twitter at that pod guy Duke. As always, I'm joined by that guy Lucas Perfetti. You can follow him on Twitter at LucasPetty46. We are covering the Chicago Bears versus the Detroit Lions. Obviously, if you watched the game, the Chicago Bears lost to the Detroit Lions at home 30-31. Obviously, like the big thing missing with that 30-31 was the missed extra point by Cairo Santos. Justin Fields had another pretty impressive day outside of the pick six, but that's something we'll definitely get into. It seems like a lot of the narrative is the referees in this one. I think it's pretty easy to go down that road, but I would just vote of caution for the fan base. Just don't try to blame that on everything, because we definitely shoot ourselves in the foot just as much as the refs shoot us in the foot. We don't want to become Green Bay Packers fans who complain about the refs all the time. But yeah, so Lucas, how you feeling about this one? It was obviously a rough one. I think both of us were pretty juiced up about the fact that we would beat the Detroit Lions. I think the idea is you need to beat the Detroit Lions. It's kind of that game that you need to be able to take advantage of. It would have been a nice little dunk to beat the Detroit Lions after they had just beat the Green Bay Packers. But now the Detroit Lions are currently sitting with 2 wins over both the Bears and the Packers. What year is it? What fucking universe is this? And why do we have to live in it, Lucas?
Well, don't underestimate fucking Dan Campbell, dude. Everyone wanted to make fun of the guy the same way everyone wants to make fun of Jeff Saturday. But at the end of the day, dude, football is about moving the guy in front of you out of the way or making a play, right? Like it's that simple. And sometimes dumbing it down and being a fucking meathead is the right thing. Like, I'm not gonna lie. Like, people use that term like it's such a terrible thing, and like stats are so fucking perfect. But at the end of the day, like, football is 100% cock and balls, and sometimes you just need that in order to be fucking successful at it, right? So that's just kind of the way I see it, man. And this is something I cautioned the fan base of before when we talk about, oh, that was a fucking epic tank, bro. Like the best tank possible because our quarterback scored 30 points, but we still moved up draft position. No, you don't want to teach your team how to fucking have obscure ways to lose games, because we're seeing the Detroit Lions finally kind of breaking through this, learning how to not fucking lose thing, right? And the last thing we want is to be losing games that you're up 14 points because of one interception touchdown and a fucking missed extra point, right? Like, I know you talk about the penalties, and that's egregious, but I implore our GM to go ahead and get some superstar talent on the team next year, because at the end of the day, a bunch of random dudes like Angelo Blackston, and even though Kyler Gordon's a rookie and Jaquan Brisker looks like a great rookie, right? Like your Sam Mustafers of the world, you're not going to get fucking calls with that roster, okay? We've talked about this, and maybe some people will take it as far as saying things are fixed a certain way because of gambling and point spread, stuff like that. But at the end of the day, this is a league that is superstar driven. In order to get the superstar calls, you need to have fucking superstars. And right now, we just have one, and that's Justin Fields, right? That's it. That's our only superstar. Bo Jack's a stud, little bit older vet, and never really had the flash to his name that he deserved when he was at his peak. And he is kind of playing at his peak again, right? He had a little bit of a lull there. But don't expect calls to happen for a team that's in the middle of a fucking rebuild. That's my biggest thing. The most concerning thing to me, and I think it's more of an indictment on the roster itself, right? If you look at the roster, we essentially maxed out the cap, but 50% of it is dead money. So, it's hard to close out games when you don't have closers on your roster for the most part. But at the same time, it makes me worried, like this 3-point loss to Miami, not being able to finish, right? Not being able to win this game by this game that you had a commanding control of at a point. Like you're learning habits on how to lose games, right? And it's hard to break that. So this, hey, let's fucking tank thing. The Bears aren't tanking. Cody Whitehair is still out there. Dante Pettis is still out there. Equinemius St. Brown is still out there. Velus Jones, a 3rd-round draft pick. We talked about this before the show. He's fucking sitting on the sidelines right now without a helmet and shoulder pads because the Bears are trying to win games and he's not ready to go yet. So if we're gonna fucking tank, let's do it the right way. Let's do it like a fucking organization should, and go see exactly who you have in your young guys and what positions are your biggest positions of needs. Because you already know what Cody Whitehair is going to give you, right? Like, you already know what Lucas Patrick is. You don't know what Carter is. What's his name? Jatir Carter or something like that. Like, we don't know what some of these young guys are. So why don't we fucking take a look at them? I don't know. It pisses me off. Losing to the Detroit Lions is an embarrassment. The Detroit Lions are the type of team that loses a game because they missed an extra point, not the Bears.
Well, dude, the Detroit Lions coming to Soldier Field and winning this game hurts, because I'm pretty sure this is kind of the same story we've been dealing with the Detroit Lions the past few years, where they've come in our house, I believe in 2020 they beat us, I believe.
I just want to know what's up with the fucking penalty, like, not even the penalties of, oh, that's a bad call, but like shooting yourselves in the foot. Like, we were the most disciplined team throughout the preseason. How the fuck did we just randomly start getting flagged for everything? Like, what is going on?
Yeah, I mean, and I definitely feel like Eberflus, that's where he's going to start coming under fire a little bit. Obviously, we're pretty big Eberflus guys, but I think it's impossible to ignore that, not everything has been perfect. It's definitely looked like a first-year head coach at times, but he's also looked like a guy who's also trying to instill a culture. I think a lot of what you're talking about within your first rant there, Lucas, I think it sounds a lot like a coach trying everything he can to win football games, like exhausting every fucking potential best player on the roster to try to make that happen. Guys like Velus Jones aren't getting the opportunities they should when, in all essence, me and you knew what the season was going to be going in. But Matt Eberflus, he wants to win. He wants to have that winning culture. So, like, it almost feels like there's a little bit of a confliction there. I don't want to over speculate because, I mean, there's no way to prove anything like that. But, like, it seems like with the personnel decisions we make on a weekly basis, it feels like regardless of what Ryan Poles is doing with trades or signings or practice squad moves, like, it seems like Matt Eberflus, regardless, is just taking the absolute best 53 every single week and trying to put him on the field. So, like, in that sense, I have to give him credit, because it seems like he's trying to make the best of a situation. He's trying to, like, instill these guys like, hey, this isn't a fucking tank. You know what I mean? Like, we're still trying to win every single week. It's not going to happen. It's not going to work out that way, because simply put, we've just depleted ourselves of talent throughout the season. And, some of those trades you can make an argument for. Some of them, kind of leave us scratching our heads personally, but like, it seems like they're trying to keep that culture while still doing what they're doing. You know what I mean? Because I agree with you. I think it's a great point, Lucas. And I think it's something that doesn't get brought up enough by either younger fans or fans who haven't been kind of paying attention to the whole tanking process since it started. You know what I mean? Like, it is a very hard thing to get out of, like Detroit in all intensive purposes basically tanked to get Matt Stafford. And while they got a pretty great quarterback, look what Matt Stafford's career in Detroit was. It didn't lead to anything. You know what I mean? Like,
he left.
Exactly. Like, they had Matt Stafford and Calvin Johnson, and that's a number 1 overall pick, and that's a top 5 pick, and they still did nothing. You know what I mean? Like, they put up numbers, and the stats were fun. And I'm sure, like, you bring it up to a Detroit fan of Stafford to Calvin Johnson or Megatron, like, they're gonna have fond memories of that. But they don't have a Super Bowl. They don't have playoff wins. They don't have fucking division wins. They don't have fucking division titles. Like, that's the name of the game. That will always be the name of the game. And, like, stats are really fucking cool. But at the same time, winning football games is really cool as well. And when you get into that loser mentality just to try to pinch out all the great talent in the NFL draft, like, you risk the chance of being that type of pathetic for a long time. The Raiders did it as well. And you want to know what? They missed on those draft picks, and it set them back fucking 10 years. So
the hiring Josh McDaniels is the worst thing that franchise could have done.
I guess I should have been specific. It was more like tanking for like a Jamarcus Russell and then drafting Jamarcus Russell and then being like, well, we failed so bad on that set us behind.
What people are really not adding to the equation of the metaphorical offseason that they're having in their fucking head right now is the fact that Justin Fields is a single individual, and he is the most important individual to this entire franchise right now. More important than Poles, more important than Eberflus. He's the guy, right? Like, that's the most important thing on this in this organization. You're talking about a guy that has traditionally won since he was a child. State championships in high school, national championships competing for in college, right? Then you come to a team, you go 6-11 or whatever they were. Was it 17 games last year? 6-11, 6-10, whatever it was, right? And then you go into the next year and now you're a 3 or 4 win team, right? So unless they move in the right direction next year, you're talking about a guy that's going into the 4th year of his rookie contract. Who held out recently? Because their organization was a complete fucking shit show around them. Deshaun Watson, and what happened? He got fucking traded eventually. He still hasn't hit the field, but he got fucking traded. And that's what people are not adding
in. He hasn't hit the field for way different reasons.
Different reasons, but that's the thing that people are not adding into the equation, bro. We have very little room for error. Right now, with the roster the way it's currently constructed and what the roster that Poles inherited, and I understand there was some dead fat that needed to be cut. You couldn't re-sign a guy like Hicks. But then you look at someone like a Mario Edwards. Why the fuck is he gone? You gained nothing from that. All you gained from it was a roster spot, and you put maybe Dominique Robinson in that spot. Okay, cool, whatever. I don't mind Dominique Robinson, but you get what I'm getting at. We've created more holes than we had. And now we have to refill those holes in order to be a competitive roster. And with all of the money that's there and the draft picks, which we traded what looks like a top 38 pick for Chase Claypool, who took less fucking percentage of his snap share. We'll get into that, I'm sure, but took less snaps last week than he did the week previous when he first got over here. That's fucking alarming in its own sense. But you're asking them to have a very high hit rate this offseason, and a lot of the signings that they make, not to be a Super Bowl contender, but to be competitive. So say you fucking draft a 3-tech with your first pick at number 6, or you trade down and draft a 3-tech, and you go get a couple other guys. One of them's a Velus Jones. One of them's a cart, right? You get one Braxton Jones, and you get one starter that tears his ACL. Well, now that you still have all those holes, you just filled one hole, right? You still got everything else. And even if you have a high hit rate in free agency, like, we're talking about a kid that, yeah, he's mentally strong and he could deal with taking hits and shit like that, but he wants to fucking win. You think he wants to run for 170 yards? No, he doesn't want to. He wants to be a quarterback. You think he's not hearing the narrative of people calling him a running back? Sure, Bears fans got his back, but at the end of the day, Bears fans don't sign his fucking check. So I think we're really not understanding part of this equation of tanking of, oh yeah, it's a great higher pick, all of that shit. Still got to build the roster up. Because if you don't build the roster up properly, now we have the first time in my lifetime where we have a legitimate possible superstar franchise QB, and the organization might be so fucked up around him that he might want out. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but that is something that is not outside of the realm of possibility.
No, it's not. And it's something we've talked about in the past, Lucas. I mean, we've actually been talking about it quite a bit the past few weeks, about the idea that, like, if we don't get this thing figured out, like, Justin's coming up to that contract, and, like, while it's always, you know, sunshine and rainbows thinking about a Tom Brady type deal, that's not the fucking norm. Like,
you're gonna have to pay him through,
dude, and that's what I mean, especially when we're using him at the percentage that we're using him, like his usage percent, if that's something that can be put at, like, and I'm sure there's a way you can put a number on that with how much he's either running or throwing the ball on every single drive, you know, like, there's a lot that goes into that, man. That goes a lot into your body. Like, while it's awesome to have a quarterback that can move around like Justin Fields, I do think Lat makes a really good point in the comments here. Justin Fields has never run first quarterback in college, and if anybody actually watched him at Ohio State and didn't just watch highlights, they would know that he was. You can go look at his fucking rushing stats at Ohio State. He didn't have to run the fucking football because he had time in the pocket to be able to gash teams through the air, and that's where he's going to be at his absolute best. Like, you know, that's where you see, like, it's funny because, like, we scoffed because we hate being able to compare like unique situations, but, like, if we are going to look at, like, the Josh Allen type of development cycle, like, Josh is, like, he's getting paid for his arm now. You know what I mean? It's not just his running ability. It's not just him being able to run people over. It's that when he's not doing that, he's throwing absolute fucking rockets. And I know this is bad timing because he threw probably one of the worst interceptions I've seen him throw in his career against the Minnesota Vikings to lose in that game. But, like, you understand what I'm saying? Like,
no, I get what you're
like,
saying.
That's the type of way we need to roll with them, man. And like to the entire roster build idea, like people need to remember that, like, even if you're like one of the biggest Ryan Poles guys, and there's nothing wrong with that if you are, dude, I think you have a right to feel confident with some things that he's done. You know what I mean? Especially when you look at a guy like Jaquan Brisker and you look at the guy like Kyler Gordon developing the way he is, and you look at Braxton Jones, like there are things to like about that. But you also need to understand that the best GMs in this league don't have 100% hit rate. Like there are going to be mistakes made. There are going to be bad decisions made. And like, that's why this upcoming offseason is so damn crucial for Ryan Poles, because we're going to see what that hit rate looks like for him. We're going to start seeing what that average hit rate looks like, because that's what keeps people hired and that's what gets people fired. You know what I mean? Like if he misses on a lot of his signings, it's not going to be good for him. If he hits on like 3/4 or like even like Poles, like kind of like what Pace used to do, where he do the 1 year kind of prove it deal, and you get a couple, good guys out of that, like that will bode really well in his direction. But like people need to understand that, like you said, Lucas, the window keeps getting smaller of opportunity to be able to build this roster around Justin Fields on this rookie contract. And the more you keep pushing that down the road and be like, okay, well, so we're going to build this roster for next year. We're going to continue to build for the future. The more you're going to hit a point where it's like, you better have every fucking piece set in place by the time you sign Justin his contract, because that's when guys are going to start having to leave, because you're not going to be able to afford them to keep them around.
That's so like one of the benefits though. We know if he's got Equinemius St. Brown, Dante Pettis, and Darnell Mooney as his highlighted receiver, he could put up fucking 30.
Well, dude, and that's kind of what we were saying in the fucking offseason. Like when people were complaining about, and these are the same Poles guys now, people were complaining about the fact that they weren't tossing a bunch of talent around Justin Fields. And we kind of said it. We're like, it seems like Poles is kind of doing a trial by fire. Like, what can you do with nobodies? So when we give you somebody, we know that it's going to be a worthwhile investment. So like in that sense, I will give Poles a little bit there, because he didn't give a ton to the roster on that one. And Fields has proven that he can do it by himself.
One thing people won't admit, because they want to make every Ryan Poles issue a Ryan Pace issue, one people won't admit, and they can go back and look through, Pace's hit rate was far above the average. Like 65% is a really good fucking hit rate. A lot of free agent signings go to shit, whether it's because of injury, because they are trying to get into a different system, don't take to the coaching well. There's a million different factors of why something can't work out, right? So you would be surprised, especially with the late round guys that became starters. And I'm talking about guys that just still are in the league, right? Like his first 2 drafts were pretty bad. And then as he got more and more into it, you're seeing some of these guys like Thomas Graham contribute other places, Kyrus Tonga, right? Some of these late round guys that no one ever heard of. And I know Poles drafted a few this year, but right now, the only one that's seen any fucking playing time is the UDFA Jack Sanborn, who we're going to highlight today, and Braxton Jones. Everyone else is one of his high picks or one of his more priority signings, right? Like we're not seeing some of these guys that were, the Mario Edwards of the world or the Roy Robertson Harrises of the world, right? Like it just seemed like our fucking defensive line kept reloading, and we only paid 1 or 2 guys every year, whether it was Leonard Floyd and Khalil Mack, or Khalil Mack and Akeem Hicks, Khalil Mack, Robert Quinn, right? Like all those other guys filled in really nicely, probably because they had superstar game-changing talent next to them that other teams had to game plan for, right? So I'm not saying it's like so far gone, but it's like I don't see it being a Bears are a competitive Super Bowl team next year. I'm seeing like if they do really, really well in the offseason, they're a fringe playoff team. If they don't do well, they're back in the gutter. So this tank turns into a 2-year thing, 2-3 years. And then you're talking about the end of Justin's rookie contract and the fact that he's unhappy. And maybe he wants to be somewhere that's a little bit less dog shit, because your beloved Chicago Bears have done nothing right in my lifetime. So if you're a fucking faceless 14-year-old Twitter egg, they've done nothing right in your lifetime. I can guarantee you that, because I've never seen them do anything right.
Yeah. That's my opinion. No, I mean, you definitely hit on some points there. I will say, when it comes to Pace and Poles, the situations are a little bit different, but that's why the Poles hire had to be a good hire. Like, and I think that's gonna go on management that starts at the top if a guy like Poles doesn't pan out. Because when we hired Pace, like you think about where we were kind of as a franchise, like we kind of felt like we were dwindling down from that last kind of run anyway. Like it was obvious that we weren't going to stick long with Cutler. It was obvious that there were some roster changes that need to be desperately made. We brought in a guy like John Fox almost to kind of like guide getting that back up and running. You know what I mean?
And Pace, I will say, Pace took a fucking grenade launcher to the entire roster, and you really didn't see any significant progress until about 2017 on defense.
See, but like that's why Poles had to be a knock it out of the park hire though, because like Pace didn't have that quarterback contract he had to manipulate. Like he didn't go draft Mitch until 2 years into his tenure. Like, and there's nothing wrong with that, but like that contract is the ticker, man. And when you're joining a roster that already has that quarterback ticker going, and now we're seeing what Justin Fields is. I mean, we saw it against Detroit Lions. We've seen it the last month. Like of what he is, he looks like a guy that you need to be able to build around. Like the margin of error is a lot smaller. So like, I think you can benefit from comparing the two. And I think,
yeah, that's a really great point actually.
But you know what I mean? Like there's a little bit of a difference where like when people are on Poles' ass about stuff like this, it's because the stakes are a little bit higher. You know what I mean? Cause like we're always going to hear like the Pace guys gave him so much benefit of the doubt for so long. And it's like, once Mitch got drafted, that's where the benefit of the doubt started getting a lot tighter. Instantly. You know what I mean? Instantly. Like those first 2 years, yeah, I did. I kind of gave him like, all right, we're going to roll with this. But like the reason I don't do that with Poles right now, per se, I mean, and I don't think I'm somebody who's unfair to Ryan Poles either. Like the reason I do that now is because like as much as everyone wants to claim like, oh, this is a long-term rebuild and all that. And it's like, you don't have the quarterback to have a long-term rebuild right now. Like this is something you need to figure out now because like this contract is hovering over your head. Like you need to show that Ryan Poles can draft like he drafted this past year every single year. And even then, like we have a guy like Velus Jones who isn't getting snaps. Like, so like there needs to be like, we need to start seeing it fast. And I understand maybe that's not totally fair to Ryan Poles if you compare it to Ryan Pace directly, but like, you're also hired to be a GM in the NFL. You knew what you were brought in to do. You found out if Justin Fields is a quarterback. You found out. You got the answer now. Now we have to see it. Like, that's why this upcoming offseason, it's, yes, be excited about it, but be very, very, very understanding of every move. Be able to criticize things. Be able, if Poles does something you don't like, be able to point it out. If he does something you like, that's fine. Point that out as well. But, like, this upcoming offseason is so fucking crucial to, like, the next 2-3 years of the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, and Poles' situation, what he walked into, even with being pressed against the cap, all that shit, still 100 times better than the situation Pace walked into. Because our old aging vets, you knew you weren't going to keep fucking Jimmy Graham or Nick Foles or those guys close to 40 that are really, putting your age up. But Akeem Hicks, maybe 33, Khalil Mack, 31, Robert Quinn's a little bit up there at like 32 or 33. But we're not talking about Lance Briggs at 35, 36, and Brian Urlacher, who's older than that, right? Charles Tillman, who's in his late 30s. Like, we're talking about a team that still had some prime in it, and we opted to trade our cornerstone pieces. And I actually had a really good conversation with someone, forget his name off the top of my head, but he was talking about like, yeah, he told me he had faith in the Poles vision. And he said, because, it reminds him of how Kansas City started. That's fine and dandy, but Kansas City was in a lot different situation. Like they didn't have Patrick Mahomes right away. They waited 6 years before they got Patrick Mahomes, and then they kicked it into fucking overdrive. Same thing, right? That's when they went and picked up Tyrann Mathieu because they said, we got someone that can go win us a Super Bowl. You got someone that can win you a Super Bowl on a rookie contract. So I think that was a very valid and a great point that the circumstances are a lot different. But Pace walked into something that truly needed to be blown the fuck up. A lot of these contracts were set to have way less dead cap hit, shit like that. But we chose to be like, you know what, we're going to get rid of it and we'll just take a second rounder. That was our choice. And then we use one of our second rounders for Chase Claypool, which, hey, I love the fact that we're allocating resources towards Justin Fields, but when he gets 31% snap share, I don't like that, especially when I see a well-run organization like Kansas City, who we're comparing to, right, put Kadarius Toney in, he's got a touchdown. They're putting him in good situations.
Yeah, no doubt. And I guess I'll give Kadarius Toney a little bit of credit, but I mean, he could have he could have crawled into the end zone with how that entire play was set up. That play scheming, I swear to God, I'll go to my grave hating it if Nagy had anything to do with it. But like, he couldn't have been any more open. All he had to do was stand out there and be like, "Hey, Pat," you know. So
Yeah.
like I'll give him that, but like that's the Andy Reid effect. If we're being honest, Andy Reid can. I always say make chicken salad out of chicken shit. That dude has been doing it offensively for as long as since he was originally hired with Philly. Like,
But my thing is, they have Juju. They could have worked him in slow. They could have put him on fucking ice for a while. They have Juju. They have fucking Valdez Scantling that they've been using. I don't know if he got injured. They have Mecole Hardman. They have Travis Kelce. They still found a way to get fucking Kadarius Toney involved. We have Dante Pettis, Equinemius St. Brown, right? Like, what are we doing here? What a fucking asshole.
I don't.
You know what I mean? Like, I just feel like that first week, maybe they said, hey, we need to tone back a little bit because all we're giving them is screen passes and they weren't that effective. I think he had one that went for like 10 yards, but I don't know, man. That should be first priority is getting him involved and getting him on the same chemistry that him and Darnell Mooney have. Like, that should be the number one priority for the rest of this season. So we're not working that shit out next year.
Yeah, and no doubt. And I think that's a good spot to kind of get us into our game because I mean we did rant and rave a little bit, but this is all really good important
all
stuff.
Relative to really it's inspired.
It's very relative. And listen, if you're listening right now and you're upset that we didn't just immediately jump into the Bears Lions game, like this is going to be kind of the norm for the rest of the year with the way the season's going. Like we're going to need to start having to talk about next year. Like it's the elephant in the room, you know what I mean? But I guess with the Claypool thing, like it's worrisome for sure. And like I was the one that pointed out the play percentage the other day in the group chat. But like I'm gonna give it a little bit of time. I will give it a little bit of time. But if this continues in this direction, it's gonna be a big fucking problem. Like at the very worst, Chase Claypool is a big body who's 6'4", can run in a straight line. You know what I mean? Like I know that sounds kind of familiar to a guy who just had himself a game up fucking north that we usually shit on, but which I'm not going to say by name because he still hasn't earned that because he only ever runs away from me. I never see him run towards me. But I will say like you need to try to get Claypool involved a little bit. Like I understand wanting to get him to learn the offense, but it's another thing, like you said, to get him in a rhythm with Justin Fields. Like if Justin has to tell him the play out of the fucking huddle every couple plays that he's out there, like, okay, fine. He's an NFL wide receiver. Something tells me that like that's not going to be the norm all year. You know what I mean? It's not going to be like a Kevin White situation at West Virginia where leaks came out that his quarterback was giving him the play every single fucking time. Like we're actually going to have situations where like Claypool's going to learn the way that the
he went to Notre Dame. He should be smart.
Whatever position. What's that?
I said he went to Notre Dame. He should be smart. I will say though, I'd be a lot more fucking worried if we come out of the bye in like 3 weeks or whenever it is, whenever we get back and Claypool is at the still at the same amount of usage. Then
I'll be worried if that happens next week. Like we just need to keep him on the field. Like it's as simple as that. Like it's not a situation where you traded for a guy who wasn't really playing in Pittsburgh. Like dude, he was a starter in Pittsburgh. He was getting a pretty heavy snap count. He was getting a pretty heavy dose of passes from both Kenny Pickett and Mitch Trubisky. Like he needs to get involved in the offense. This isn't like you can't fucking just hold his hand for this long. You know, at a certain point, you gotta be like, hey, you're an NFL wide receiver. We'll tell you what to do. Go out there and ball. You know, and I feel like he did a pretty decent job of that in his first appearance. Like, yes, the 2 drops were pretty brutal, but like at the same time, that's football. And that's something that like when we traded for Chase Claypool, Lucas, that was something that me and you talked about immediately. Like it's Braylon Edwards effect. It's something you're going to fucking deal with every once in a while. It really sucks and it's infuriating, but until he proves otherwise, like that's just something you have to deal with. But like there's so much upside to that. Like you can't convince me that there's not ways to get him involved in the offense right now. I don't know if that's a Luke Getsy thing. I don't know if that's an Eberflus thing of like being like, hey, we just traded for this guy. He needs to get acclimated to the locker room. But I haven't heard anything from him like about that at all. So I would be shocked if that was the case. But it can't hit a point where guys like Equinemius St. Brown are getting higher snap counts. You know what I mean?
Like it's just no, it's not okay. It's not okay, dude. You just traded essentially a first rounder for him. Put him on the fucking field. I don't care if he's being used as just a distraction and just running straight lines. And Justin might throw it to him every once in a while when he sees he's open. I don't give a fuck. He needs to be on the field.
Dude,
the draft right now.
How do you think fucking Pettis, Fields talked about Pettis and his chemistry. How do you think that chemistry started, dude? It was a lot of Pettis getting in open fucking space. That's a lot of being an NFL wide receiver. especially when you have a quarterback like Justin who can extend the pocket. It's finding a way to get in open space and kind of like looking at your quarterback and be like, hey. And you want to know who does that insanely fucking well? And this will take us right into our next point. And the lap just brought him out. Our boy Cole Kmet, the guy who everyone was so convinced was not a weapon, that we needed to go sign Mike Gesicki, we needed to go draft a tight end. I tell you, it's almost like when you feature this guy in an offense, he does amazing fucking things for you. And it's almost like I always have to go back, Lucas, because I'll let you have this point because I know you love Cole Kmet too. But it always goes back to that fucking practice where on the very last play when they were doing Hail Mary drills, Justin rolling out to the right and setting something up with Cole Kmet right to find that fucking area in the middle of the field to get out into the sidelines to make a play. Just a real stick in the mud type play right on the fly. Cole Kmet hit both fucking feet onto that line, caught that football, and it was about a 50-yard gain. That's the type of chemistry that you see with these two, and that's why this needs to continue to be a trend. Like, I don't want this to just be one or two off things, and it's not. You know what I mean? We saw what Cole Kmet could do last year when he got a heavy dose with Justin Fields, and now we're starting to see what can happen when Matt Nagy, cover your ears, but we use Cole Kmet like a red zone tight end because he's fucking gigantic, and that's how he was used at Notre Dame. So, yeah. It's really nice to fucking see. He's a guy that can get open space. Like my pro comparison to him has been Jason Witten since the very fucking beginning because he's just very good at fucking finding open space in his own, sitting in there, getting the football, and then running somebody over after. Like, please, Luke Getsy, continue to use this. I want to see this be something that even if it's not quote unquote winning us games right now, I want this to fucking be a trend that continues into next year and moving forward because it's very obvious that Justin and Cole Kmet have a fucking very tight chemistry.
Yeah, no, cross tight end one off of your fucking pre-draft bullshit list or whatever you got going on if you're writing blogs. Because there's no reason why we've been telling you for fucking years now. Like, he can be a feature pass catcher if he's not used as a pseudo offensive lineman, and they have been using him much more as a feature pass catcher. And that play, his first touchdown, was actually, when you want to talk about athleticism, like that was as athletic you can get for a tight end. He got up to make that catch. That ball came in on him hot, fucking turned around in midair, was able to locate the ball and bring it down. Like, that was a very, very high level fucking play for a tight end, as a pass catcher too, not just as a blocker. So no, yeah, we've been saying this for a while. Cole Kmet is a very, very good football player, and and that's another reason why you can't watch the stats, because context with stats makes a big fucking difference, right? Like Mark Potash, who I'm sure most people already know he's a jerk off by now, but put out that stat that was like, the Bears are now the sixth player or the sixth pick in the draft, right? Devonta Smith in 2020, Devonta Smith went at I'm sorry. In 2020, Jalen Waddle was the sixth pick, and if we were 5-5, we would have been 17th pick right now, and Alex Leatherwood went at 17. It's like, okay, well, the Raiders reached on every fucking pick they made in the first round, other than Josh Jacobs. Sealand Farrell was looked at as like a 20th pick. He got picked 4th overall. Okay. So there's one bit of context for you. Another bit, why would you go back to 2020? Why wouldn't you go to 2021? Right? Like, I think it would look a little bit different if you picked those players. So at the end of the day, go fuck yourself. But
the only thing I hate more than the Green Bay Packers are false equivalencies, but go ahead. I'm sorry. I had to get that in.
That's why the stats.
That's the dumbest fucking tweet I've ever heard in my life.
No, okay. Yeah, that's why the stats don't matter without any sort of context, because people like me and Duke have been telling you, I don't know if you see him, but he doesn't run routes clean off the line. And in the last 3 weeks, he has been lining up in the slot, outside, other places, and being utilized as a feature pass catcher. And right now, he's the best receiver on the team, better than Darnell Mooney. He is the biggest weapon on the team. My personal opinion, it's hard to dispute that. He's got 5 touchdowns. Who else has 5 touchdowns on the team other than fucking Justin Fields? Nobody. And I think he's tied for second with the most touchdowns in the league at tight end in general. So go fuck yourself, delete your Cole Kmet takes, or own up to him, whatever you want to do, but he's the guy.
So I'm pretty sure I saw this stat. I don't hold me to it, but it looked like it had something behind it. Just with his touchdown performances the past few weeks, Cole Kmet is officially the number 7 fantasy tight end on the season. Like that's
I started him over Mike Gesicki last week.
Dude, if anybody hasn't seen my fantasy lineup that I tossed on Twitter, I scored over 200 fucking points this last week, which is egregious in my fucking league. Like egregious. Like guys are topping out like 160. Like 163 I think was like the highest scoring game in our league. And I hit 200 because I had Justin Fields and I had Cole Kmet in my fucking lineup. But I do have to touch on that Darnell Mooney point because that's a heater. That's a heater. I like that fucking take a lot, but that's a heater
on the team right now.
But like, dude, let's be honest.
Mooney's a good player.
If we continue to feed Cole Kmet, we're gonna run into the same thing we ran into last year once we started getting rolling on offense with Justin Fields. Cole Kmet gets fed because Justin loves feeding his tight end when he has the opportunity to feed his tight end. His tight end's not fucking sitting as a blocker, which we're seeing more of in the offense. And Darnell Mooney eats off of that because once they start focusing to the front 7 in the middle of the field, having that safety down to worry about Cole Kmet, that's where Darnell Mooney starts getting his fucking tight release at the line. That's where he starts taking shots downfield.
Crazy idea. Chase Claypool, the guy you just traded for, right? Why not have 3 threats on the field instead of 2? Only makes sense.
Yeah, it will. And I really think I have to bring that up. I don't care if people don't know contest, but it's a situation where like hopefully this is the start to kind of start see what the total package is on offense. Because Lucas, we talked about this before the show, and I think it's something that we really get kind of talking about because it's something that similar to Trent Dilfer said that earlier this week, and actually caught some flack for it. And if you say anything on Twitter about it, you'll catch some flack for it as well because I kind of got some flack for insinuating that Justin should throw the ball this week a little bit more. We know what Justin Fields can do running the football. We know what let me say it one more time. We know what Justin Fields can do running the football. Like it's very obvious he is fucking electric. He's probably one of the best, if not the fastest fucking quarterback in the NFL. His second gear, once he gets past the secondary, is insane. So like, and his ability to maneuver the pocket to what he wants it to be is becoming outrageous actually with how good he's doing it. So like, we know we can do this. Where we are with this season, we're sitting at 3-7. We just lost to the fucking Detroit Lions. Like we're on a skid. You know what I mean? Like it's awesome scoring all these points. And trust me, these losses taste a lot less terrible when we're scoring points, and that's cool because it makes it a little bit more fun to watch.
Loss, right? Like,
but like at the same fucking time, like we're not winning games, and like we're kind of hitting the point where it's like we're not going to make playoffs. You know, like we're not winning the Super Bowl this year. Sorry, spoiler alert. We need to start seeing what this offense is going to look like next year. We need to start seeing the type of situations where, like, if we have to throw the ball 30, 40 times, we need to see what that looks like. You know, if we have to run the ball a lot, we know what that looks like right now. Yeah, but like we need to be able to see Chase Claypool get fed. We need to be able to see Darnell Mooney get fed. We need to be able to see Cole Kmet get fed. And this doesn't fall on Justin Fields. You know, I mean, Justin's running the plays that they're asking him to run. He's making chicken salad out of chicken shit on the plays that he's, you know, that are being ran. Like I definitely get that. And I understand with the offensive line they have up front, because this is kind of the number one argument I always hear when it comes to this is like, well, they don't want to throw the ball out because they don't trust the offensive line. Like it's the point where Justin can move the pocket enough that he can still make some fucking dashes or make some throws down the field. Like we can still roll out. We can still do some RPO, different stuff like that. You know what I mean? Like we can get creative with it. But like we need to be able to see like Justin at his absolute best. And contrary to popular belief, Justin at his absolute best isn't running the football. Justin at his absolute best is tearing secondaries apart with his arm, because that's what all he used to do at fucking Ohio State. And we need to know. We need to be able to see, now that we spent a second round pick on Chase Claypool, we need to make sure that that's a thing. We need to make sure like that is going to work, because otherwise we need to figure out fast, because we have a lot of money in this offseason up here to spend. We have some draft capital we can mess around with if we wanted to go get like a genuine, legitimate number one. And we're already looking at teams that are probably going to have to blow it up after this year. So like we need to be able to see what Chase Claypool is. We know what Darnell Mooney is. There already been extension talks there. And we need to be able to see, we know what Cole Kmet is, but we need to continue to see Cole Kmet play in this direction. Like I want to see Cole Kmet get 10 touchdowns by the end of the year. And I don't think that's I don't think that's crazy.
No, you're asking for less than a touchdown a game, especially with how he's been performing and how they move the ball. He's their main red zone target right now. So I don't think that's out of the ordinary at all. He might come up short. He might only end up with 8 or 9, but I don't think it's a crazy ask. And you're right. In terms of development too, like we need to take that next step in Justin's development. We know what he is as a runner. We know he could put up points if his back's against the wall, right? One of the notes that they gave him and some of the plays that they've given him are one read or run. If your read is not open at the top of his break, get the fuck out of there and make something happen with your legs. We don't need to see that anymore. It's encouraging to see. I love seeing it for my fantasy football team. It's incredible. But at the end of the day, we need to start developing other aspects of fucking Justin Fields, the way that Josh Allen slowly developed and the way that Jalen Hurts and some of the Lamar Jackson, some of these guys that were effective in the beginning of their career because they were able to keep a defense off balance with their legs. Now it's time to start implementing some of these other more difficult. It's time to start implementing some of these more difficult concepts and having him develop and fail in those ways. Because if we've learned one thing from Justin Fields, it's that he really doesn't make a lot of mistakes twice. And it seems like he went through a lot of the mistakes you could make in the first couple of weeks of the season, because since then he's been taking off. So let's start having him fail again. Let's start having him start learning more complex things and start having him develop those other parts of his game, especially with the quick release game, right? Like getting him comfortable in that quick release game. Some of the more, mundane shit, some of the Tua shit, right? Like Tua's leading the league in fucking yards right now, if I'm not mistaken, or he's up there. And it's not because he's able to throw a great deep ball. It's because he's fucking surgical with it underneath. And we need Justin Fields to get there for us to really be that next echelon of team, especially if we're looking at next year. So let's not start figuring this out next year. Let's start figuring it out right fucking now, right? Let's make Velus Jones active next week. We know what Dante Pettis is. We know what Equinemius St. Brown is. They've been surprising additions and more productive than I thought they would be, but you drafted a wide receiver in the 3rd round. Let's start using him and seeing what the fuck he has to offer and how he's going to be implemented. You traded a 2nd rounder for Chase Claypool. Let's implement him. Let's keep feeding Cole Kmet and Darnell Mooney, and let's start getting this passing game going in the right direction.
And for the record, with that all being said, Lucas, and I know you're going to agree with me on this, that does not mean that once we're playing in competitive games that we can't roll back to this run style if teams flat out can't stop it. The only reason we need to start running this offense like you just explained it and how I explained it is we need to be able to see the total package. Like that's literally it. We're not doing this because like we need to force we hate our running quarterback. He needs to throw the ball 40 fucking times every week. You know what I mean? Like I'm not of that impression. I hated when fucking Nagy used to do that with Mitch because it didn't fit his fucking style. Like we just want to be able to see, like, if we have to run in those situations, if we get in fucking shootouts and they're stopping the run, then what? You know what I mean? And like, I know I have a lot of trust that Justin can do that because I fell in love with Justin Fields during the draft process for his fucking arm. It was not his legs. You know, everybody loves his legs. His arm is it's almost vastly underrated because of how impressed people are with him running the football. And like, I want that to start being on display a little bit more. And I want to see that to continue to develop because we've seen guys who have a lot of natural arm talent that never took that next step because they were focusing on different parts of their fucking game. You know what I mean? And like with Josh Allen, and the reason I was putting this up like this is like guys like Josh Allen and Lamar Jackson, you want to know what made them become fucking MVPs and MVP candidates and the point where they're going to get paid a lot of money. Their legs started that conversation. Their fucking arm finished it. You know what I mean? They're like a Lamar deep ball when he's hot. It's beautiful to watch. Josh Allen right now, he is at his absolute best when he is slinging it in the fucking pocket or slinging it on the run. You know what I mean? Like his arm talent, getting it to fucking Gabe Davis, getting it to Stephon Diggs. Like, and those are the types of talents that we can get surrounded around fucking Justin Fields at a certain point. But like, we need to be able to continue to develop that talent because Josh Allen is a guy who I see compared to Justin Fields all the fucking time. He was drafted. His arm was extremely raw, but the arm talent was very obviously there. He just had some accuracy issues. He had some stuff he had to work on. He had to get used to throwing the ball deep in tighter windows. And you want to know what? He's done it. he's fucking done it. He
Hair,
looks a lot fucking better. And that's something that I think Justin can continue to fucking develop on. Because, dude, we rave about Justin's deep ball all the time. It's not just the throw power. It's that he can drop that fucker in a bucket when he wants to.
And that's the thing, right? And like you look at now we're talking about Justin Fields in a different light. You know, beginning of the season, it was rough. It was like, hey, is this going to be the franchise guy? Now we know he is the fucking dude. Like, let's increase his shelf life, right? These quarterbacks that run the ball traditionally are going to last a lot shorter than a guy like Tom Brady, who is playing at 45. Or, it's just kind of one of those things. You look at Aaron Rodgers' decline. You look at Ben Roethlisberger, not necessarily mobile guys, but guys that took a lot more hits than Tom Brady, and they're falling off at a much younger age, right? So now we're looking at the long term here. We want Justin Fields to be healthy for 20 fucking years. And while it makes my goddamn underloins fill with blood seeing Justin Fields truck somebody going into the end zone, right? Like, I'm pretty sure that guy had a concussion. I hope he's okay. But he laid the fucking lumber. Like, that was a running back run. But at the same time, let's have a running back do that, right? Like, let's I get it, because he's a winner. He's a fucking baller. And if guys aren't going to get open or catch the ball, then he's just going to do it him fucking self. But that's, that goes into the offseason conversation. How do we surround this guy with enough talent where he's not playing hero ball every fucking game?
Yeah, exactly. And that's a big part of it. I think you see offenses at their absolute best are not asking their quarterback to do every single fucking thing. Like, not because their quarterback can't. Like, let's look to the neighbors up north. Like, because it's obvious. That's probably the most obvious example over the course of his entire career. Aaron Rodgers playing hero ball does not result in Super Bowl wins. Like, it got one, but he didn't play hero ball. It was a fucking full team effort.
It was their best team. Yeah,
exactly. And their defense, I think they had the best turnover defense in football. Like, but that's not the conversation. It's more or less like, yes, you're going to put up MVP type numbers because Aaron Rodgers can fucking do it all. You know what I mean? Like, that's great. That's awesome. You're going to get to the playoffs every year. You always have a chance, blah, blah, blah. But like, when you have the ability to run an effective offense and have that sitting in your back pocket as your fucking secret weapon when you need it, and then like all Justin has to do is just fucking use that magic when it's needed. Holy shit, are you just a dangerous fucking offense? Like, that's honestly what Belichick did a really good job of with Brady for so long, and that's why they were as successful as they are. Like, yes, I believe that Tom Brady's the best quarterback of all time, but I think where they really honed it in with him is they didn't make Tom just carry the offense every single fucking year, dude. They had a fucking effective, like, three-headed monster running back. They were able to feed a lot of guys. They did some quick hitting routes, but it hit points in games where I always think of
such a huge part of their run, being able to come out and just catch dump down passes because the middle of the field was clear with Gronk and Edelman running people out of it. So
and then you hit
7 yards.
And then say you hit a point where you're down 14 points at halftime. The second half, you have fucking Tom Brady. That's when you let Tom Brady loose. You know what I mean? And that's where your offense rolls at its absolute best. So like, that's the way I want to see us go with Justin Fields for the long-term outlook of our offense. Like, I'm not directly comparing Justin Fields and Tom Brady or anything. What I'm saying is, like, when you, instead of like just having that magic carry you and use every last bit of fucking juice you absolutely can until you run this guy into the fucking ground, like, run an effective enough offense that he's that weapon. That's your X factor when you fucking need it. That's the guy that's like, all right, Justin, we're down 10 in the fourth. Go win us a fucking football game. And like, it's game over because Justin's going to win you that fucking football game because he's fresh.
Well, and not only that, but yeah, exactly. You run the ball that much, like, he's getting a little bit fatigued towards the end of games, and it's a lot harder to close out these one-score games. But even still, if you develop your passing game more now, then when you get into a situation where your kicker shanks an extra point, your defense lets up a touchdown, and you need to throw the ball for 4 or 5 plays in a row, you're able to do so. But it's kind of tough when your quarterback's fucking running in circles playing hero ball all fucking game long. And now it's a time where it's like, okay, don't have timeouts, can't run the ball. Now we need to throw it. Now let's put all the fucking pressure under this microscope. No, stupid. So yeah, you're right.
Watch the AFC Championship last year. No better fucking example. Watch how fast Josh Allen can move down the field at a fucking late point in the game, and then watch Patrick Mahomes be able to do the same thing. And the reason they can do that is because of the comfort that they've built in that fucking passing game, regardless of what their strengths are. That's exactly what we want for Justin Fields. Like that's the best version of Justin Fields. Being able to just effortlessly move down the fucking field with his arm or his legs.
And you see Mahomes, to me, is like the prime example of the quarterback that throws the ball so effectively that everyone is so scared of his arm that he is scampering for 20-yard fucking third down runs, like because everyone just has their back turned to him. Imagine Justin Fields in a situation like that, where DBs are so scared of your arm that now they have to respect that in every which way. You can't run a spy against him, none of that shit. And now we have a 3rd and 20, and it's like, okay, everyone's gone. See ya. I'm at that 20-yard line in 1.2 seconds, right? Like
I hate to bring him up again, but that's what made Aaron Rodgers so goddamn dangerous in his prime too.
Yeah. And he wasn't even mobile. Like, we're talking about guys that are like bare minimum of the type of athleticism you need to have now to
Patrick Mahomes runs like a fucking soccer mom, and he still gets 20-yard rushes. It's disgusting. You know what I mean? But no, that's a great point. That is a really great point, and that again, man. Like, that is the development of where we want Justin Fields to go. I know we didn't quite talk about the Detroit Lions or this game as much as we fucking wanted to, but like there's a lot of stuff that needed to get cleared up, Lucas, because
shout out your boy Jackie before we close out though too, because
I have to yeah, it's good spot. I mean, fuck, dude, we're at 53 minutes right now anyway. Not that you all don't love hearing our wonderful voices every day of the week that we decide to record. But hopefully the schedule gets normal. I got some news probably coming up too, but that's a story for another day. Jack Sanborn. So that guy's pretty good at football, man. So I actually had a pretty good talk with somebody on Twitter a little bit earlier, and it like, I love kind of being able to talk about why, like, everyone knows I'm a Sanborn guy. I like being able to kind of say like why I was kind of high on that. And it wasn't just this whole like, oh, Wisconsin guy, you know what I mean? Because there are so many Wisconsin guys in the league that, like, I'm happy when they get drafted or they get signed, but it's like, probably not.
You even said Chanel, like, with where he was at, that was their big ticket linebacker, but you're like, we can't, it's not feasible for us. Like,
exactly. And like, trust me, I tried to find every draft mock that I could to make that work, because the idea of having Leo Chanel and that other linebacker we used to have, who was pretty damn good, fucking dude, that shit was giving me wet dreams. But at the same time, I knew that once that plan failed, because like, I thought a guy like Jaquan Brisker was a little bit more realistic with that pick, because if he falls to that spot, which, whatever, hindsight's 2020, there was a guy in Sanborn that was going to be sitting late in the fucking draft that was just not getting any draft type. And I just, for the life of me, couldn't understand it, because Jack reminds me so much of Chris Borland, who was a guy that was pretty highly touted coming out of Wisconsin, was I think he was a 4 or 5 year starter at Wisconsin. I'm pretty sure he was a redshirt senior, and he played a little bit of his like true freshman year. But he was a guy that, like, athleticism doesn't fly off the board. He's not going to give you insane combine numbers, but like, when it hits game day, dude, like he's out there and he's running the defense. Like, if you go and watch Wisconsin games the past few years on defense, and it's something that we're desperately missing this year, Jack Sanborn was kind of that fucking, like, he was the gel in the middle. He kept everything together. He did not make mistakes, and that allowed a guy like Leo Chanel to absolutely like flourish, because it allowed Leo Chanel to play a lot more free. He wasn't too worried about having to kind of make up for anything that Sanborn would have to do, and he would be able to. That's how he worked himself into the pick that he worked in. Like, there were people who were having him mocked in the first round, like, and rightfully so. Leo Chanel was fucking incredible last year. But Jack Sanborn was that guy. He was that glue guy that kept that together, man. He's a very stabilizing force. And he's somebody that when he's playing free, when he's playing like not having to think about his responsibilities because he knows them, you get what you get against the Detroit Lions. Like, I don't want this to just be seen as like, oh, well, undrafted guy had one good game against the Detroit Lions. It's like, when you look at what he did at Wisconsin, when you look at him earning his spot as an undrafted free agent, when you look at what he did in the preseason,
His preseason was outstanding.
And when you look at where he's headed right now, the guy had 2 fucking sacks and 2 tackles for loss. Those weren't the same tackles. Those were 4 different plays.
And an interception
he would have had an interception that would have sealed the game had it not been for a horrendous call on Jalen Johnson. Like, this is a guy that you can really sink your fucking teeth into and be like, this can be the Mike of the fucking Matt Eberflus era. You know what I mean? Like, this can be our guy. I think they saw that. I think they didn't want to rush him onto the field because they didn't want to throw it at him too quick. But I don't believe that a guy like Matt Eberflus and Al Williams saw a guy like Jack Sanborn in camp and didn't think like, oh, we have something with this guy. But
yeah, I'm very surprised he went undrafted, to be honest.
Dude, I was too. I was fucking stunned. Like, I thought 5th, 6th, 7th round, it was a guarantee.
You
like,
think 7th round, a guy like Elijah Woods, the guy that they drafted, the Bears, like, you'd think they would have prioritized someone like Jack Sanborn there. You know what I mean?
I just feel like he fell so much under the fray, and like, I just don't think people really respect how good the defenses at Wisconsin have been since Jim Leonard took over as defense coordinator a few years back. Like, it's been dominant. And like, all those defensive players that are coming out are becoming pretty good NFL fucking football players. You know what I mean? Like,
that's it. Elijah Hicks, my bad.
No, you're good. But like, it blows me away. He was so overlooked. Like, it was almost like he was looked at as like he thrived because he played next to Leo Chanel. Whereas Leo Chanel, or where Jack was never given that type of fucking leeway. It was like, no, Jack only looked good because he played next to Leo Chanel. And it's like, no, it goes way deeper than that. You don't run one of the best defenses in the nation your entire tenure at Wisconsin as the guy in the middle unless you can play some fucking football. And yeah, this is where the NFL gets a little too wild on obsessing over athleticism over just being able to play fucking football. And we see it all the time. We see guys like this slip through the cracks all the time who end up being just absolute dogs. But because they don't run a 4.4 40, nobody wants to touch them. I think you see it with Jack Sanborn. And I think it's funny. A lot of people on Twitter were like, he looked a little slow last week, but he looked a lot faster this week. It's like, it's crazy how much faster you can play when you're not thinking.
That's I don't think people understand. I know people don't understand linebacker positions by what we see on Twitter. The space you're covering is nowhere, especially at Mike in this system. And he was playing the short side of the field in pass drops. So like, you're really not covering that much ground. They are still NFL athletes. Like, maybe he runs a 4.7 instead of a 4.4, right? But like, you're not covering that much ground. Those numbers really make a big difference for your wide receivers. Even your running backs, I don't think it, because you're working in short spaces, someone like Montgomery, whatever, but that top end speed really helps, right? Your cornerbacks, that top end speed is going to help. But when you're playing in a bubble, like, you just have to get places quickly. And most of these guys are athletic enough to do that. Now, if you ran a 5.25, sure, he's not an NFL caliber athlete. But if you're being looked at, you're probably fast enough to play the position. So I don't know. I just would have liked to seen, when I go through the process, like a Rondale Moore sticks out to me because of the biceps. Like, I'm a big specific traits for specific players, and Jack Sanborn's neck is unbelievable. Like, I would have loved to see someone with a fucking permanent cowboy collar playing next to Roquan Smith. So a true thumper to kind of hold things together in the middle to allow a Leo Chanel or a Roquan Smith to just run freely and use all of his athleticism. We don't get to see that. We never did, but I would have liked to see it.
And I think that brings up the biggest point of all of this, because it was probably one of the most wrong takes I've seen online. Roquan Smith and Jack Sanborn don't play the same position. Like, I'm not going to sit here and talk about Roquan, like, because like, I don't want to do that, but like, they do not play the same position. Like, they play linebacker. Linebackers are not all the same position. Like,
but it's
especially in a 4-3 defense.
No, it's off ball linebacker, dude. Remember, it's off ball versus edge linebacker.
Yeah, and those same people can't even fucking tell you what an off ball.
Safeties are premium positions. Don't ever forget that.
All right, we need to stop.
I think
all right. Yeah, so I mean, sorry guys if you expected a full post game of the Detroit Lions and
The Bears suck cock. They lost to the worst team in our division.
Exactly, dude. There's no way to spin that. But in all honesty, I thought we did a pretty good job at spinning it. I thought we talked about a lot of good stuff here. We talked about where we want to see Justin Fields go. We want to see where like the offense goes. We have concerns with guys like Chase Claypool. Jack Sanborn looks like a fucking stud. He looks like a guy we can kind of have that linebacker room kind of go around as we continue to build that linebacker room, because that linebacker room is far from a finished product. There's some decent guys in there, but we need some other fucking star power out there. The defense didn't look great once again, but like I feel like this is going to be the format moving forward. We got to kind of look a little bit ahead because of where we are with our record. We're not winning the Super Bowl this year, unfortunately. I know I hate ripping that Band-Aid off every fucking episode, but here we are. But I think just kind of touching on where this team is, where guys are in the development cycle is just a little bit more important right now. You know what I mean? Especially when we're on a 3-game skid right now. It's
like a 7-game skid at this point, dude. I think.
Dude, trust me, I'm still holding out hope like that the Bears can find a way to magically get to fucking 8 wins just so I can hit my fucking my prediction. But it's getting a lot more insurmountable every single week, and I'm never a fan who is like, I want this team to lose every game. I want fucking, I'm not that, and I'm not gonna get mad at people for rooting for this team when we're fucking 3-11 or something stupid like that. So this is where we're at in the season. So
fan how you want to fan, but my personal opinion is tanking is for losers. And right. Front offices tank. Coaches, players, they don't fucking want to lose. They're not going in there like, oh yeah, we're gonna have a ton of cap next year. That's not how they're thinking. They want to win the game. That's why Justin Fields is rushing for 160 yards.
And that's why you have Eddie Jackson fucking holding people accountable in the fucking media. You know what I mean? Like holding himself accountable as well, because that's a guy who is as fucking competitive as it fucking gets, who does not want to lose these games. And you got to remember, man, you don't make it to the NFL with the idea that you're cool with losing. You know what I mean? You make it to the NFL because you're one of the most competitive fucking people on the planet. So yeah, it's a good place to stop. If you liked what you heard, be sure to subscribe over on YouTube. Hit the like button if you like what you hear as well. Be sure to shoot us a comment. Dude, we had a Dolphins fan. I don't know if you saw it, Lucas. We had a Dolphins fan comment and basically shit all over us for a fucking Tua takes.
Tua sucks.
Like he watched it after the fact. I appreciate that he gave us like a paragraph worth of thoughts, and he obviously listened to the fucking episode. But like, I don't know. If you ever want to give me a comment like that, like we had a guy shitting on us for our Tevin Jenkins takes early on in the year too, which that shit aged like milk for him, but that's his problem, not mine. But yeah, anyway, be sure to subscribe YouTube, Apple, Spotify. Be sure to subscribe over there. Rate us 5 stars. Shoot us a rating. If people are to be believed, our Apple rating should be back at 5 stars, but we'll have to see. Yeah. Until next time, let's keep the peace. I'm Duke Coughlin. You can follow me at that pod guy Duke on Twitter. As always, I'm joined by put the kids away, turn the volume down, the Ayatollah of Capicola, Lucas Perfetti. You can follow him on Twitter at Lucas Perfetti 46. We've been barely there, and bear down.
Ask that kid what Tua would be doing on the Bears offense right now. Bear down.
Dude, I'll pull up this comment for the next episode. We'll give him a
Please do, because he's fucking terrible. And nothing will make me waver from that statement. He's surgical underneath. I heard someone describe him as that, and I think that's a correct take. He is fucking surgical underneath, and he gets the ball out quick, but he sucks balls.
Whenever we start doing t-shirts, we should make one that says surgical underneath and have an arrow pointing down.
Yeah. Kirk Cousins is incredible at that shit underneath too.
Yeah. Kurt Thuggins, depending on who you ask, but all right, let's get the fuck out of here, Lucas. Tell him to bear down.
Bear down.